The civil aspect is just part and parcel of that penal aspect. And what I want to say is that actually the sexism and misogyny of it are fundamentally really the same. And so we really have to have zero tolerance for Sharia courts and Muslim arbitration tribunals and say, listen, there's been years and years of struggle by progressive social movements in this country for people's rights, particularly in family matters. It's been wrestled away from the church, and now we are handing it over lock, stock, and barrel to the Islamic movement. And I think it's not a protection of Muslim women, it's not a respect of Muslim women, it's actually a huge disservice and an offense to them that we would allow large segments of our population to be relegated to kangaroo courts with lesser rights and lesser standards. It's unacceptable. Thank you.
Sorry, because we just have a few seconds to talk. A couple of things. I have to go back, sorry, to the Sharia councils, because we've been beating the Muslim arbitration tribunals enough, and I think there's agreement on that. I do want to say that there is legal compulsion, in a sense, for those who go to Sharia councils and courts. If they don't abide by the rules, they are considered apostates, heretics, and so on and so forth. And you know, it's not just your priest saying something bad about you. We're living during Islamic Inquisition right now, and we have Islamic states that today in the 21st century are stoning people to death and hanging people for being gay and 16-year-olds for sex outside of marriage. You know, the threats and intimidation that are linked to that movement are very alive for people who live in it. You have people who are born and raised in Britain who are afraid to say they've left Islam or are afraid to say gay, living in Britain, born and raised in Britain. I think we have to look at it a bit differently as well, and urgency of it too. On the issue of accommodation, if we go again to the fact that Sharia councils are sort of private, yeah? Well, we've managed to ban female genital mutilation, and we could also argue that, well, girls needed to mutilate it because then they couldn't find a proper husband, and mothers and grandmothers and everyone did it because they wanted their child to fit in. But we managed to ban it because it's outrageous, it's intolerable. And we can't have conversations about, well, we could try to improve it, so let's set up clinics for girls to get mutilated. They don't have to use a cut glass or go to somewhere. But they can do it under medical conditions. Private matters, private issues, but because they are violating people's rights, we demand that the state intervenes and take action. And I think the same applies for Sharia councils. We need to oppose both. We need to do them unequivocally. Finally, I want to say, Yasmin Alibi-Brown talked about there's a lot of young women now who want Sharia law. And I think, again, it's a mistake not to see the links of the demand for Sharia courts, the demand and rise in women wearing burqas, to the rise of the political Islamic movement. Quoting Sharia Khatun, she's a Muslim women counselor. She said that she's been harassed, receiving death threats, and she says, she's been forced to start wearing loose-fitting Asian clothes, glass instead of contact lenses, and she says that she so far refused to wear the hijab, but she said that's more of a common sight in Tower Hamlets than it is in Bangladesh itself. And she says that I've returned from a visit to Bangladesh not long ago, and it's definitely more conservative here. And then she says, I used to look at photos, and I think all of us, those who come from the Middle East, from North Africa, we know this clearly. I look at photos of Bangladeshi women in the 60s, and I go, wow, they were fashionable, whatever, liberal, they wore short sleeves, and now, I think if we don't see the links of this, the rise of the burqa, the rise of Islamic schools, the rise of Sharia councils with the Islamic movement, we fail to see the fact that this is a demand of the Islamic movement. It's not the demand of Muslims. Muslims are the fronts, and those labeled as such, battling against it, and we need to support them. And one thing, just because it's, this is not an issue of everyone needs to speak English. I can see people in this room who don't speak English. The immigrant experience often means that people come and it takes several generations for them to be able to fit in. And Wilder's despicable policy of stop Muslim immigration and stop anyone coming from Muslim countries, well, then you'd stop a whole lot of us as well, And reality is that you have to make a distinction between Muslims and those who are Islamists, who want Sharia law, who want Islamic schools, who want to take us back to medievalism and barbarity. And to stand up to Sharia councils and Muslim arbitration tribunals is to challenge, to stand up to that movement. And that is a task that we have in front of us. Thank you.